All right. Why is there no sound? There we go. So back to this. Yeah, figured out a way to get it to where it's not immediately logged in and it's just I start recording on this screen. So again, but beyond that, right? We're basically we're committed to this. Again, this is the intro. We can actually see all the ones that are grayed out. Oh yeah, I was gonna say because I had it set to where we're starting at the fifth diagnosis claim. We'll be going up to six because that's where we are in terms of the labs, and then we'll work our way up in terms of the Lain diary entries as well. But first, we need to get our obligatory secret cutscene sequence. Uh, Again, we're gonna do at least one of these before we start. So there we go. Presumably, this is the other kid we saw speaking to Lane. Oh, all right. I was also gonna say, is this like a this is this because the question is okay, how is the Lane we're seeing, what would you call it? How is the Lane we're seeing play into the story, right? Like, is this like a grown up version looking in the past? Like, is that like how does that Lane play a part? But 表情はやや暗いものの、笑った顔のあどけなさは全くの健康なストーリーだ。話し方に関しては基本的に無口になる傾向があるが、全くコミュニケーションが取れない控えめでおとなしい印象が、質問等に対する理解力が十分であると、その答えを繰り返す。注意力、集中力、検討心、思考、感情の面で、おおむね問題を、病状に関する質問が、So what interests me about this is that the therapist is smart enough to ask about her symptoms. Again, the therapist is smart enough to like or well, shoot, where was I going with this? And then this is 6. The therapist is smart enough to know that again, what she's doing is kind of very surface level, albeit unintentionally still surface level, but she's not smart enough to recognize that she doesn't have friends. That's probably a terrible idea. Okay, so that's very interesting. So again, so talking about, what she's done, right? So again, basically just and then yeah, Toko, we're saving hers, right? Until so now we need to go back to the Lain diaries. Oh wait, what level are we on? Because we might be going too low. Okay, yeah, there's nothing down here. We got so yeah, anyway, again, that's very interesting that again, she I guess the therapist is able to kind of pick up that, a lot of what Lane's doing is very surface level. But that again, like I mentioned, she wasn't smart enough to pick up that she didn't have friends. But also again, kind of I guess their analysis of Lane's and stream, particularly with like the eyesight, right? So that's kind of interesting there. So 26. Where do Lane's diaries start? I think they start above Toko's. So again, particularly with the eyesight, but then also, not having the side effects that would come, I guess, with, I guess someone of that, what would we know she has, I don't remember what the disease was or whatnot, right? But again, knowing that who I guess with her, I don't want to say disease, but like disorder, right? Um not having those negative side effects is really interesting, and I guess would play a part to the overall kind of like abilities of Lane, I guess is a way to put it, coming from her kind of disorder there, right? So yeah, these are where we start to get to these Lane. Yeah, so we can see all these there. So five. So what was that? Six. So again, we're just doing these all in order. This should be number seven's close enough. Unless, hold on, let's just make sure. Because it goes bottom to top, so this should be 8 or 11. Yeah, so let's do entry number 7. Again, I find that very interesting there. So they're trying to figure out, and again, also her comment about her basically being like delusional, kind of, but still a normal life being possible, right? That's also very interesting. Hey, whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, that's normal, right? Okay, yeah, that's a little sus if so again, besides, the nature of sex ed, right? I guess what was the name? Toko, or what was the boy's name? Hold on, let me replay this. So, and I guess chances are these different what would you call it, words lead to different further, like let's say tomo. So they lead to different, dialogues that are probably about similar stuff. But again, we're going for the whole chronological thing. So again, Tomo. So Tomo must be the boy that she was talking to on the computer. At least I would assume. We still don't know who Kyoto or Ryoko or whatever their name is. But again, very interesting. So, but yeah, the big thing is, again, we're doing this. So what lab level is this? So yeah, we need to go down. So again, we're just going in the order of, labs, psychiatry, and then, I mean, it's a bit obnoxious that we need to do all of this, but so this is what, lab 7? I believe this is the one we're on. The one down there, okay, that's just an R. So are we doing, so lab is what? Counseling recording? Yeah, go with the counseling recording first. We are on number 7. Bitch, that was thrown at us. Yeah, again, this continues from the university conversation. Because this is in Japan, right? Bruh, hey, you didn't need to put it like that.
は好き？うん。何の運動ですか？鉄棒。すごい。先生は走るのは得意だったけど、これちょっと疲
Fuck
れ
is the metal beam? Did I miss
た。
something?
回ると目が回っちゃってダメなのよ。私、ぐるぐる回るの好きだよ。前転も後転も。どっちも好き。で、何が嫌いなの？答えたくないんだったら別にいいんだよ。それより、レインちゃんの好きなお勉強は？ごめんなさい。疲れた。今日はちょっと早いけど、終わりにしようか。
So again, the biggest thing I find interesting is that even in this one, for the most part, the conversation was about Toko, right? Again, for me, that's very interesting. So what psychiatry are we on? I think we're on 7-2. This should be number 7. Yeah. So again, I find that very interesting. So
今後の臨床上で、はじめに、私はこのケースに関しては、精神科医という立場でも、カウンセラーとしてクランクに接する。したがって、今後クランクと岩倉レインのクライアントです。その理由は、一つはクライアントがまだ12歳であり、感受性の強い児童期である。彼女の中に自身が病気であるという認識を持たせたくない。実際、今後の臨床の結果によるが、本日の面接において、彼女の病気は単なる子供の悪夢によって精神的なダメージを傷っている程度のものであり、面接中においても、多少内向的な性格は認められるものの、受け答えには問題点が見られないとである。彼女を病気と判断したくて、今更異議を唱える必要はないが、私の判断は、現時点では彼女が病気ではないとさせていただきたい。もう一つ、私が精神科医であるのと同時、カウンセラーであると、患者にとって最適な立場を選択できることがある。今後カウンセリング過程において、何かしら神経症及び精神障害の兆候が見られた場合、カウンセラーとして精神科医の判断を委ねられることがある。もちろん私自身がそのまま継続して彼女の治療に当たることに十分可能性があるが、研究の客観性を重視するから、第三者の臨床を担当してもらい、私は引き続き研究対象として彼女と関わることが望ましい。当研究では異例なこととは思いますが、精神医療の現場の向上の了承していただければと思います。
okay, I think this was of probably out of every single module we've gone through, I think this is possibly the most interesting one, and I'm going to take a moment to talk about it. And I think for future ones, I'll just stop at this screen as opposed to just like, snapping through them. I'll stop at this screen and talk about it, and then I'll exit. And now Mark are moving on to the next one. I think this one was quite possibly the most interesting one we've gotten the whole time, and I really want to talk about quite a few things. First thing I think is the fact that Toko again, first thing she mentions again the nightmares and the psychological damage. Again, the fact that she is talking about that when we know that Lain herself, again, she knows that they aren't nightmares, right? So there's kind of a level of self-awareness there that, again, Toko hasn't picked up on. But I also think it's interesting that she's saying she would rather treat her as a therapist. Again, A, would rather treat her as a therapist. B, again, given the reasons that, okay, she's 12, she's still young, she doesn't want to make her feel as though she's sick. But again, the interesting point she makes is that if there are signs of mental illness, she would need to go back to treating her as a psychiatrist, which makes it seem as though she was kind of looking for the excuse to treat her as a therapist rather than a psychiatrist, right? Out of, again, kind of, basically just feeling bad for her rather than, I guess, quote unquote, doing her job. I think that's very interesting there because that makes it seem like she should be getting treated as a psychiatrist, but Toko's kind of going out of her way to make sure she can treat her as a therapist. I think that's very interesting there. And then it's also something, again, mentioning the research, lab or institute, right? And it makes it seem it's much more of a formal setting where Lain is, I guess, not being held, but being treated at. and quite possible that again, Toko mentions possibly another Lane still being our client, but someone else, coming in to potentially replace her. I think that's very interesting. There was a lot of interesting stuff from this part. And again, this is why we're doing it in chronological order, so we can kind of see it as it goes on. But this one was quite possibly the most interesting one so far. And I think it shows a lot about, again, both Lain and Toko, because Toko shows that she's still young. She's only what, 27, so she's still kind of young, and she's still, I guess, I don't want to say naive, but she's still fairly green when it comes to this type of stuff, which is what I feel like, again, is leading to the whole kind of her treating her as like a therapist, right? I feel like that's kind of what has built into that and is, indicative of her character there. But Lain also, through what we've seen, the fact that she's been kind of fairly surface level to Toko, and then trying to, shift the conversation onto her, right? And actually succeeding. A lot of their talks have been about Toko instead, right? But then, still being fairly surface level, Toko being able to pick up on it, right? But Lain having some level of self-awareness in knowing that, again, there, right? It's like knowing that there's kind of something wrong with her, right? That they aren't, nightmares. It's just this, that was so interesting. That was probably Toko 29. So this is psychiatry number 8, but we should be looking for, what is it? Lab number 8. So lab number 8 should be around here somewhere. Am I wrong? Is it, or I think it's on the R side. It is. Because yeah, we're doing this, and then we can go to like the Lain log. So, and again, Toko, we're holding off on her. There we go. We're finally here. Also, let me what I'll do is I'll save after each one just in case this crashes. I feel like that's the best way to do it. So yeah, that's, to me, that's fairly interesting. That's very interesting there.
でもよかった。先生嫌われちゃって、もうレインちゃん来てくれないかなって心配してたんだよ。でね、レインちゃんが謝る必要なんて全然ないのよ。悪いのは質問攻めにした先生。どうしてくれる？ありがとう。それでね、今日
And
は
again, she asked Lain about, I think, I don't remember what it was.
あれ、前の病院でやった。そうでも先生もこれで遊びたいの。何かのテストなんでしょ？すごいわね、レインちゃん。知ってるの？これはね、ローシャ
Rorschach.
テストっていうの。別にこれで何がテストできるってわけじゃないの。ちょっとしたお遊びって思ってたの。でも、つまんない。そうね。つまんなかったら、そこでやめにしましょう。それならいい？じゃあね。これ何に入れる？し、
Wait, is this actually what she's being shown? What does it look like? Looks like a bear.
そうなのかな？怒ってる？それとも泣いてる？
Bitch, I'm way off. Maybe I'm the one who's fucking who needs help.
あ、僕よね。やめましょう。
Some fairly interesting things about this one. Again, I don't remember what question, because I remember it being a relatively normal one. I guess Lain just didn't want to answer it. I don't remember the question, which is it was like 3 minutes ago. So, but again, also what's interesting about this is not just the Rorschach test, but more so the fact that it was a prior, hospital. So she's had previous treatment on this, but seemingly this with whatever research lab, and then Toka is like her therapist, psychiatrist, is seemingly kind of like the culmination of this, and it's kind of like, I guess, I don't want to say last ditch attempt, but it's more so like, again, like culmination is the result of all like that prior treatment. Like this is where, she ended up again to actually like try to get her some help. So I find that very interesting there. And then obviously the fact that okay, because she's probably done this, like assuming she's been every single place she's been has probably done that, right? So it's like she's bored of it. So like they did one and then they're done, right? So, but again, that's very interesting there because again, the big thing this reveals that this isn't her first time, like her first rodeo. So, and then let's see what not lab we need to see psychiatry 9 or this is 8. So yeah, we need to see diagnosis 8.
クライアントは非常に協力的であり、全く問題はない。ただし彼女の中でまだ私への警戒心があり、すべての問題を話し合うのが難しい状態である。比較的時間があったので、遊戯療法といった簡単なゲームを開発した12歳ということにとってあえなく拒否され、セッション。観察者である私への個人的な興味を持っているが、それは私への警戒心の表れと思われる。自宅での人形遊びがクライアントの主だった日常の生活行動であり、人形に対する仮想人格を認め、そのことに対してコンプレックスを抱いている。同年代の友人の少ない児童に見られる典型的な孤独からの構図だったと思われる。
So I think the most interesting thing about this is not necessarily the dolls, right? Because we know Lane's kind of a loner for like just lack of a better term. The most interesting part is that again, she's still being fairly cautious around Toko. So what that makes it seem like is though Lain views this as something where she just needs to do and needs to kind of get through and just something that has to happen rather than something that's actually beneficial for her, which would come with her actually trusting Toko and then recognizing that, okay, this type of therapy can help her again, I guess delusions for lack of a better term, since we know they're not just nightmares. So that's the interesting thing there. That is the interesting thing there, right? So now we can go to what is this lab 9? Yeah, lab 9.
何か楽しい話をしようか。レインちゃんは、
Bro, you literally need to bathe or shower to fucking like stay clean and like survive.
先生はお風呂の方が好きだな。でも先生のうちに飛ばしたから、お風呂だと結構めんどくさいのよ。毎日遅くに帰ってきたらお風呂の支度するのがめんどくさくて、ついついシャワーで済ましちゃうんだけど、お休みの日は必ずお風呂にするの。お風呂に入ると体中が温まるし、気持ちよくならない？お湯の中が怖い。溺れちゃいそうで？違うよ。じゃあ何が怖いの？よくわからない。でも、体に何かが触れてるみたいだから。それは、お湯は少なくとも肌に触れてるけど。
Yeah, no shit, sure. Like I was gonna say, that seems like a bad question to ask. It's like, well, you don't like baths? Are you afraid of drowning? It's like, damn, it ain't that serious. But again, Lane, right? Obviously hot water. It's more so like probably like an encompassing feeling. Like I don't want like not what's thalassophobia. I know that from Amori is like fear of like drowning, I'm pretty sure of water. But like probably more of like a claustrophobia type thing, kind of the walls or like a sense being like encompassed by the water. I don't know. I'm speaking out my ass. I was gonna say we've seen Lane shower, but that sounds like mega sus. But it's something to where it's like when it comes to like showering, right? And especially when kind of like, in Lane's position, it's something to where it's like, having a nice like warm shower, right? Like I'm not a woman, but like I know some like women who take they're super serious about that. Like for me, usually what I do is I shower like twice a day, but it's something to where like, if it's something where it's like I'm pondering, like if I'm kind of in a reflective state, I guess I don't know if that makes sense. Like I'd take like longer showers. Like it's the old like, shower thoughts, right? It's probably like that with Lane where it's like she has time kind of think and like decompress right in that environment. I mean, that's kind of unironically what we've seen. I don't know why it seems like there are so many like we've had at least like two, I'm pretty sure. It's like this game's very adamant about giving us fucking shower scenes, but it's like again, the point being that it's like that's time to decompress. So That's probably what it is for her versus, again, the therapist who's again, I'd say those, baths are probably more about relaxation, so, for, so psychiatry, this should be 9, right? We just did 9, right? Okay, yeah, it is. Again, we're holding off on all the Toko logs, so
クライアントの受け答えに言語感覚が低い点が指摘される。しかし、これはいわゆる病状ではなく、むしろクライアントは言語の高度な使用ができるという証明。体育と運動の違いは、事業であるかどうかであり、集団行動、さらに学校という舞台では顕著に比較される。運動が嫌いなので、体育が嫌いなのか、自身の自信の欠如から来ているものと考えられる。
again, the most interesting thing about this being it shows that they're not exactly in line because this was from a couple sessions ago, but again, the big thing being they're relatively in line, so we're still going to follow the 1-to-1. Big thing there being that yeah, it's better that we get those sessions and then get those what would you call it, the analyses afterwards, right? Even if the analyses is later on, because again, we can see she was talking about one that was in the past. But again, most interesting thing there being that, I mean, besides that, of course, the fact that not necessarily because of course Lain was able to differentiate, but more so the therapist is still, Toko's speaking fairly highly of Lain here. Again, more I would say more due to being like, I guess, kind of young and green. But again, it's interesting that she's kind of willing to go out of her way to treat her as a therapist rather than a psychiatrist, and then again, speak kind of kindly of her. Not saying she's developing like an emotional attachment to Lain, but more so something along the lines of, you know, like Lane's kind of like impressing on her, right? With what she's doing. So again, this is number 10. So and I believe the Lane ones ended off at 11. So
私、変だから。ちょっと待ってる。レインちゃんは全然変な子じゃないのよ。子供の頃ってみんなそうなの。天井の木の模様が人の目に見えたり、想像力が旺盛な子だったら、みんなそういう経験を持ってるのよ。でも違う。レインちゃんは人と違う自分って嫌い？よくわからない。いい？人と違うからレインちゃんなのよ。レインちゃんはとっても想像力があって、それはね、すごくいいことなの。だから自分のことを変な子なんて言っちゃダメ。先生は全然そんなこと思ってないよ。でも、テストした。ごめんなさい。でもね、レインちゃんは困ってるんだよね。先生は、レインちゃんを困らなくていいようにしてあげたいの。それにはね、レインちゃんのこといろいろ知らなくちゃいけないの。でもレインちゃんが嫌がることしかない。レインちゃんの困っていることを解決するために、先生ができるのは手助けだけなの。レインちゃんとはレインちゃんにしかわからないでしょ。レインちゃんが自分で解決するしかないの。先生が手助けする。レインちゃんの協力が必要なの。私は何をすればいいの？今は何もしなくていいわ。先生とレインちゃんは友達なんだから、ゆっくりゆっくり一緒に話をしていけば、レインちゃんのこといろいろ分かってくるから。そしたら、先生がこうした方がいいんじゃないかって言うから、レインちゃんはそれを聞いて、そうした方がいいかなって思ったらそうしてくれればいいの。だから今は、レインちゃんのことを先生にいっぱい教えてくれたらいいな。トウコ先生は誰にも言わない？うん。レインちゃんと私の秘密だもん。友達にも、お母さんにも？うん。約束する。嘘ついたら針千本。針千本？レインちゃんたちは知らないか。先生たちが子供の時は、約束するとき、約束を破ったら針千本飲みますよって約束してたの。痛い？痛いよ。先生なんて5回も飲まされたんだから。 はい。先生のお腹には今何本針が入ってるでしょう？岩倉さん、5000本。残念でした。昨日トイレに全部出しちゃって、0本でした。先生、汚い。
Okay, I think this one's also very interesting. Few things. I think the first thing was again, Toko saying that Lane isn't weird, and then kind of Lane, I guess obviously she knows that she's kind of different, right? So her kind of again, responding that way, and then Togo saying, Lane is different because she's Lane, right? So kind of, I guess, dejecting or like, detracting from that, saying that's like, oh, again, you're just your own person. So everyone's like their own, like kind of a cop, but it's like, again, the best you can do in that situation. And then kind of the bigger thing being her kind of, I guess, opening up a bit about like to Lane, right? Basically saying that she kind of needs to get Lane to trust her, right? So it's better that they kind of, share like because she had already been talking about herself, but that in order for her to really help Lane, she kind of needs to open up. But the bigger thing and deeper issue she recognizing and being she needs to get Lane to trust her, right? So again, her kind of opening up about that herself, versus just kind of being able to get the information out of Lane, like just by asking her, right? She needs to know that and again with Lane specifically saying can't even tell her friends or her mother, right? Um again, that being something to where it's like the big thing there being stuff that again, that Lane wouldn't want to get out, or that again she feels would impact her if our people knew, right? That's a big kind of that's a big thing there. So what lab was that? Was that lab 11, 10, or 11? Okay, that was 10. So
どっち事項。クライアントの動向が気になる。病院でのレポートの最高判断の出力傾向もあり、アギー症候群に近いといます。合わせて、不活な幻聴や被害妄想が見受けられるから、若年進行間際である可能性があるから、パッチンソンの山頂の症状は何か極めて
okay, this is interesting because again, the first thing is that that it's a report for like special concern, right? So again, even Toko kind of realizes like, okay, even though she was saying, normal life is possible, this kind of makes it seem as though it's very borderline. Like, at least from what it seems like now, it's again still possible, like you mentioned, but it seems that more stuff is pushing it towards that border, right? It's borderline possible because obviously the big thing and the issue that has been present thus far is the hallucinations on the part of Lane, right? And this shows that again, Toko acknowledges that, right? That it's not merely nightmares, it's more along the level of hallucinations and illusions. And again, based on auditory and visual testing, I don't really give much weight to the onset, paralysis, more so just that's kind of to signify that there's deeper stuff going on, right? And again, the whole like we learned that it's a whatever syndrome. I could like pull it up on my phone probably. I don't remember what it was called. It's probably in the search though. Oh my god. So what was this savant syndrome? So again, I don't think they reached that conclusion yet, but it's mostly just to show that it's deeper level stuff kind of going on. So here's what's going to happen there, right? So that was number 10. Toko again, we're doing these roughly in order. So psychiatry. So 11, but we need lab 11 first. So again, I find that very interesting there that what would you call it? Very interesting. Oh my god, this is gonna be a long ass fucking turn, but more so, yeah, it's interesting that it seems like again, even this early on, it's borderline whether like a normal life for Lane is possible. Yeah, this is number 11. Just based on what we've seen so far, like it's already almost out of the question.
ね、ちょっと元気がないね。血が乗らないって感じ？
Yes, I guess, oh my God. This,
せっかくここまで来たんだから、じゃあしていきなさい。何がいい？気にしなくていいのよ。やる。無理なんかしちゃダメ。そういう無理は余計にいけないんだから。先生の言うことは素直に聞いてほしいんだけどな。私、治りたい。治るって、レインちゃんは病気じゃないのよ。ここって病院なんでしょ？うん、病院の機能も持っているわ。実際、私の研究室でも患者さんを持っているの。でも、レインちゃんはまだどっちともわからない状態。先生は多分レインちゃんは病気なんかじゃないと思う。ただ、レインちゃんが不安に思ったり、それで悩んでいるんだったら、助けてあげたいのに。私、病気じゃない？今はまだ答えられないわ。でも多分大丈夫。もし病気だとしても、先生が治るようにしてあげる。絶対？絶対にレインちゃんを病人になんてさせない。先生は、なんでレインにそんなに優しくしてくれるの？お仕事だから？そうね。確かにこれも仕事よ。でも仕事として割り切れる部分と、そうじゃない部分もいっぱいあるお仕事なの。ただ、客観的に診断して、精神療法をしているだけじゃ治らないケースがほとんどなの。先生は研究者でもあり、お医者さんでも、目の前に困っている人がいたら、助けずにはいられないのよ。そのためには、できるだけのことをしたいの。誰にでもそういうふうにするの？詳しく言うと、例えば何か原因がはっきりしている人の場合、その分野の専門の先生にバトンタッチすることもあるわ。例えば、事故にあったり、薬物中毒だったりした場合、簡単に言うとね、体のどこかが壊れちゃったかもしれない人たち。それは先生には治せないの。私は、精密検査をしてみないと何とも言えないけど、私に会う前に検査をしたでしょう。その範囲では全く問題はないわ。それに、こうやってレインちゃんとお話をしてても、全然レインちゃんは問題なさそうなの。ただ、まだレインちゃんの話をいっぱい聞かせてもらったりしないと、レインちゃんが問題にしていることを解決できそうもないの。
this one's also very interesting. So I think the first thing being that again, Lane kind of just opening up and coming out and saying like that again, like ignoring kind of all the pleasantries that she wants to be cured again, very self-aware regarding her own condition. And it's kind of interesting that again, the doctor's almost kind of or Toko's almost downplaying. Like, I mean, for obvious reason, but again, the fact that she's kind of downplaying it, right? Obviously trying to, I guess not even necessarily comfort her, but make her kind of be content with the current situation and the possibility of, again, basically working with her to cure that. Because again, we know at this point, she like it's already to the point to where it may be only borderline possible for her to live a normal life. Like we've reached that point already, only like a few sessions in, which is kind of telling on the condition of Lane. But again, it's because that was, one of my questions. That was the big question I answered after the show where I talked about was a normal life possible? And I said, it was, but kind of with the direction that everything had been headed, it'd be really hard, right? And even, Toko's admitting that we saw in the previous log that normal life only borderline possible at this point. So her kind of downplaying it, but then I find what's also interesting is that Lane kind of, then turns it around and kind of is able like asks about, okay, the type of people that Toko deals with, right? And kind of able to get her to kind of admit that, what the nature of this care is for, right? She's not like a friend of Lane's, she like it's her job to treat people who have mental like illness, right? Again, gain her like to coax that out, right? Like coaxing that out of her. And then even though at the end, Toko, also tries to add on like, oh, but I see people with physical issues. I from specialists, but like it's also work that I can't really separate myself from, right? It's something to where her just saying that this is a place that treats the mentally ill is basically enough Like that was the confirmation that seems like Lain was trying to get out. So again, this was a very interesting one. So let's see. So we'll end off with what would you call it? Counseling or like log 11 or whatnot, right? Is this log 11? Diagnosis 12. Where's diagnosis 11? Is this diagnosis 11? Yeah, so this will be what we end off with here.
不測での診断は、万が一、すぐにでも随液所見をするべきです。ご指導よろしくお願いします。
Very interesting. So this is clearly her towards, again, she's presumably writing these logs for higher ups. Because here's the thing, I don't know how these places work. I've never been in like I may have some shit wrong with me. I don't know. Never got tested, never got admitted to kind of this type of care. So, but again, clearly she's writing to her high ups or her boss, right? Because they're not really involved with it. They just want to make sure that she's actually making progress with her clients. The big thing here being because I think what Toko's situation is, and again, given that she's kind of young and green, it's quite possible she has just no clue what's up with Lain. And she's trying to figure it out, but kind of coming up empty handed. It seems like she knows that, okay, definitely something's wrong with her. She's having kind of these delusions, these like hallucinations, and she's kind of a social outcast, like anxious and like more introverted. But other than that, just based on their conversations, she's seemingly completely fine. And in fact, better than fine, has like heightened ability or awareness when it comes to like some things, obviously later on technology, but even now just kind of just has a great deal of social awareness for someone like her. So again, I like what this makes it seem like is that basically like Toko doesn't really have answers and like kind of any idea, like kind of really any idea what might be wrong with Lain. Again, definitely something. I mean, she like herself admitted normal life only borderline possible at this point. It definitely something obviously and apparently wrong, but just no idea what. Nothing she's seen, right? And again, her role seemingly figuring this out. So the fact that she's like asking for something as like because I don't want to say it's mundane, because again, she was going based off the audio and visual, kind of tests that they ran. And again, saying, oh, early onset paralysis, that's probably just bullshit. It just means that there's, deeper issues that again, she wants more information for that hope maybe cerebral spinal fluid could help with, but that seems like honestly just a reach. And it's her kind of trying to come up with just something because this seemingly wouldn't be related to it, right? Like this is stuff presumably solely like within the brain, right? I don't think this would be anything related to her, like again, more so neural network or function, but I'm kind of talking out my ass at this point, but it's like I think what this makes it seem like as though is that she's kind of grasping at straws, which is very interesting. And then what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna wait for another cutscene and then we're gonna end it. Um, but yeah, this is very, very interesting, very interesting. And again, we're just gonna keep working our way up. So very, very interesting there. Damn, this is taking a while, low key. But again, I want to do one at the beginning and end so we can try and get as many of these cutscenes as possible. Yeah, damn, this is taking a hot minute. Jesus, yeah, this is taking a while. You know it'll happen eventually. It's just like Jesus. Any moment now, any day. I guess I'll talk until then. Again, this is yeah, I find it probably the most interesting thing I've found out is that, or like that I've kind of found out of this thus far. Okay, I thought it was gonna happen. The most interesting thing I find about this thus far is the fact that her analysis is like that a normal life is only borderline possible this early on. That's very telling about just the nature of kind of Lain herself, but also the nature of Toko seemingly not really knowing what's up, but again, also knowing that it's quite possibly knowing it's something that's beyond her control. It seems like she's really grasping at straws. Like, I hate to say it, it's just, yeah, is this gonna happen or what? Like, are these cutscenes not like if we wait long enough, we should get it. It's just I'm not gonna wait like 10 minutes. Like, yeah, I find it very weird that it hasn't happened yet. But but again, to me, that's very interesting there. So can can we just not get these cutscenes anymore? Like, what's up with that? We got one at the start. Again, I don't want to leave until we get a cutscene. I'll go till like 48, 49. But yeah, because it's like, and I think kind of here's what I'd say. I think it's very interesting because they could have gone with the whole dirtbag, therapist like psychiatrist approach. But it's seemingly that's not seemingly what they did. What seems is that it's kind of more of a young green therapist or like psychiatrist, or again, someone who genuinely wants to help Lain, but again, inadvertently ends up hurting her, given that Lain can kind of take advantage of that. And then it also being something where like it's kind of like out of her grasp, beyond her reach. It seems like she has no real clue or idea what could potentially be wrong with her at this point. So I just find that very interesting. But okay, I give this to like 50. If we hit 50 and there's nothing, I'm just gonna stop waiting for it. Imagine my computer crashes before then. But again, glad that because this definitely is helping my Lane fix, right? And honestly, I think this is more interesting than the show itself. I hate to say it. I think this, like, and especially because, like, okay, we watched all the movies, right? And we'll start to get back into Lane's entries soon. But all right, I'm just gonna fucking end it at this point. I don't know why we couldn't get that, but whatever. Anyway, let's save. So we'll save and then I'll just end it. So really I've got for this one. Don't have anything else. So yep, that's it for this one. See you in the next one.